What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Bleav in Oregon podcast. Yes, that's right. No longer the Sco-ing Long podcast, the Bleav in Oregon podcast. I'm Zachary, Neel, my co-host over there, Jonathan Stewart. Jay Stu, what's up, man? How we doing?
Pretty good, man. Scoring longs is hard to type out and for people to search. So I'm really glad that we made this change, so that way it's easier for our listeners to find us.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got the major announcement at the top of the podcast. Going forward, we are changing the name of the podcast. We are now the Bleav in Oregon podcast. As proud members of the Bleav network, we're changing it with the hopes that this helps our audience find us a bit easier. So, if you're out there looking for us, it's Bleav in Oregon. It's pronounced Bleav in Oregon. Jay Stu, what are your thoughts on the change?
I love it. I think it's exactly what's needed for the user these days. Everyone wants it now and doesn't want to think about it. They want to say, "Hey, what's that podcast? That Oregon podcast that Jonathan Stewart and Zachary Neel's on?" Oh, it's something with Oregon. So they'll just type in Oregon, maybe on Google, and then all of a sudden it'll just pop up. Bleav in Oregon.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
obviously, too, it's not like the regular word believe is Bleav or in Oregon.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's easier to find. I'm not gonna lie, I can be a little stubborn sometimes, and I was initially against the name change, mostly because the name Sco-ing Long came to me in a dream over a year ago, and I woke up at like 4 in the morning and wrote it down, and I liked it a lot. But you know what? If the bosses think that this is gonna help grow our brand, and if that makes it easier for everyone to find us and grows our listenership, I am totally fine with it.
I'm sorry for crushing your dreams just now
That's
with my
okay.
explanation.
It's fine. You know what? I've learned to take the L sometimes when it comes to you, and
Yeah,
so I'll
man.
I'll take this one. But just for all you listeners out there, this is just a call to action for you. Please, whatever you're doing, pause the podcast right now. Open whatever app you're listening to this podcast on. Follow the show, subscribe to it, give it a 5-star rating, write a review, and we'll read the reviews on the show, when they come in. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers, anyone you know who likes the Ducks, tell them to check us out. As far as I know, we're the only Oregon Ducks podcast with a member of the Oregon Hall of Fame and a former NFL Pro Bowler who's on talking about his college team. So help us spread
Yeah.
the word. We would really appreciate it.
And I can't wait till the season starts too, because it's going to get really, really fun. We'll have obviously multiple podcast showings throughout the week, prepping you guys for what's to come in the Big Ten land. And there's just a lot of excitement to look forward to.
Well, it's like you're getting us in the off season right now. You're getting us kind of BSing around and finding stuff to talk about and telling stories. Wait till
Yeah.
we get Jay Stu some film to break down, and wait till we get
Mhm.
some game tape and kind of actually real football analysis. That's when you want to be there. So once football season rolls around, we want a bigger audience because we want the viewers, the listeners to get this great product that we know we're putting out there. Jay Stu, you got anything else before we dive in?
Nope, let's get it.
All right, let's do it. Before we get to the rest of the show, we've had about a couple of weeks now with these melon hats. I know you're rocking a new one. I'm rocking a new one today too. They were nice enough to send us several. What do you think about these hats?
They're just so durable and so fitting on any occasion. I actually wore this hat to church, uh, and obviously I took my hat off
There
in
you go.
church.
I was gonna say.
But the waterproof. I mean, especially here in Charlotte, where when it's time to heat things up, the temperature outside, the weather, that means it's going to come with a lot of rain.
Hmm.
And so these hats, protect you from getting, beads of rain in your face. But you don't have to worry about your hat being ruined. It was made for this. It was made for the cause. Uh, so yeah, man, there's so much to love about these hats, and they fit every size head. What do you love about it?
Man, I like you said, I'm gonna be testing out that waterproof nature of it later tonight because actually I think this is the first episode you haven't asked me about the weather in
Oh
Oregon to
yeah,
start.
how's the weather?
It's been very nice, but it's supposed to start raining today, and I have golf this afternoon.
Well, good thing you have a melon hat.
Got my melon hat. It's waterproof. It's antimicrobial properties, so the sweat doesn't break down the fabric. It's made to float. Hopefully, it's not raining enough where I gotta test out those floating properties tonight. But
Yeah.
I'm just excited. I love the fit. Like you said, they're super durable, built to last 5 times longer than any other hat. You guys don't want to miss out on this opportunity. Go over to melon.com/Oregon. Use the code Oregon to receive 30% off of your purchase. Again, that's melin.com/Oregon. Use promo code Oregon to receive 30% off. The code expires on June 1st. Trust us, you're not going to want to miss out on this deal. Later in the show, we're going to get into some potential causes for concern for this Oregon team in 2024 and talk about a lot of football. That's if there are many causes for current concern at the start of that. But before that, I just want to go over some news items for Oregon's sporting landscape over the past week, some going forward. You good with that?
Yeah, let's do it.
So this past weekend in Eugene was a major recruiting week. There were multiple 5 stars in town on unofficial visits. A lot of 4 stars, blue chip recruits. One of the biggest, news items was from a player who actually wasn't in Eugene, but 5 star wide receiver DeCorian Moore ended up decommitting from LSU. This is a guy that's been in Oregon several times. He actually plays at Duncanville, where we talked about Duncanville with Rashad Samples, who his dad is Reginald Samples, who is the head coach at Duncanville. So Oregon's trying very hard to flip this kid to get him committed to Oregon. He's the number 1 wide receiver in the nation. I think he's the number 6 overall player in the nation. And he
Oof.
announced that he will be taking an official visit to Oregon in June. So that's some major recruiting news just off the top.
Yeah, he's a speedster too. Runs a 10.63 in the 100-yard dash. I mean, 100-meter dash. 100 yards is a long time ago, fellas. Uh, but yeah, we're all about speed. And we'll get to that later in this segment here. But speed is an important element as we go into the Big Ten for the University of Oregon.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing to note, Oregon baseball is in the Pac-12 tournament, which starts later this week. I Bleav they play on Wednesday. They are ranked number 23 in the nation. They got the number 3 seed in the Pac-12 tournament. They will play 7 seed Utah on Wednesday. They are in Pool C in the tournament play, so they'll play against USC and Utah. And then they will try and get into the single elimination later in the week, starting on Friday, and hopefully get one of those bids into the College World Series.
Yeah. Well, I love baseball now.
That's fine. We'll turn into baseball fans. That's fine. I'm
We'll
not a
turn into
huge
baseball
baseball fan
fans.
either, but we're all
You
about the
know,
Ducks.
do we have a good pitcher?
I think we do have some really good pitchers.
Okay, so we're good.
Yeah,
We
we're
can win
fine.
this thing. Let's
Good
go.
pitchers,
Let's
good
go,
hitters,
Oregon.
good
Let's go,
fielders. We got
Ducks.
this.
I love that. I love the jerseys though.
Mhm.
They have the throwback look and
Those
all
are
types
great.
of stuff. So, I'm very fashionable, so I might have to grab me one of those just to sport.
I love those. Last thing to
Yeah.
note, Oregon's women's golf. This is something we're probably a little bit more familiar with and able to talk about than baseball. Oregon
Yeah.
women's golf advanced to the match play portion of the NCAA championships yesterday. They are currently playing LSU in the quarterfinals as we record this. That's on Golf Channel. So they're in the match play. They're quarterfinals. If they get past LSU this morning, they'll get to the semifinals. Of course, as you're listening to this, you probably know what happened if you're following along, but we'll be watching them throughout the day. Hopefully, they make a deep run in this match play tournament.
Yeah. When it comes to golf, I feel like you have to have a lot of experience on your team, right?
Mhm.
Especially at this level. um I think what we're led by 2 veterans on the squad.
2 seniors, yeah, but there's also this
Yeah.
freshman, Kiara Romero, who is like one of the best amateur golfers in the nation, and she's kind of killing it for the Ducks right now.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
I met Ching.
Uh-huh.
What's her name? Ching
Yeah.
Sung.
I think so, yeah.
uh I met her last year, I believe, at the Oregon Duck alumni golf tournament out there in
Mhm.
Oregon,
Mhm.
Brazada Ranch. Um, but yeah, I met the golf coach. Really, really good
Yeah,
coach. Really
Derek.
nice
Yeah, he's
guy.
great.
So obviously, we're being led, by solid coaching. So I mean, we got the talent, we got the gear, we got the nice grass that we've been hitting off of all year. So um, we should be in we should be in good hands.
When was the last time you
So,
got out and played?
last time I went and played was last week.
Last week?
Shot a 90.
Okay, that's fine for early
And
season.
yeah, it's early season. But I'm figuring things out.
Okay,
I'm figuring out the pocket. You gotta. For me. I'm thinking about shifting
okay.
on my backswing.
Uh-huh.
So not swing, but shift to
Yep.
that plant leg, to that
Get that
pole,
trigger
right?
point. Yep.
Yeah. So when I'm here up, at the top end of my swing,
Mhm.
I shift to that left side of my hip, but I stay pressured in my whatchamacallit, my inside foot,
Yep.
left foot, so that way I don't sway, right? So I'm like
I love it.
nice and steady, and then I come down on my right hip with my elbow, and basically, keeping that thing out to second base, and I'm following all the way through.
I love it.
Um, so I was figuring that out last week, and it felt really good,
Good.
especially on my irons. My iron game,
The putting still needs work, huh?
putting needs work. Driver was pretty decent
Okay,
last
that's good.
week. I mean, I really should have probably shot at 84,
Yeah,
to be honest.
just couldn't make
So
putts.
couldn't make putts.
Yeah. I went out and I got my first full 18 in of the year. I think it was actually before we talked with Kenya, but we didn't talk about golf. Shot a 77. Pretty proud of it.
Oh man,
For the first full 18, I was like, "All right, yeah, I'm good with this.
this
We'll have a
this
good
guy's
year."
this guy's dangerous. I
It's
can't wait to play
dangerous.
golf with you and
Yeah,
get and so that way I can get 15 strokes. I'm a 15 handicap, so
I'll still beat you.
yeah.
All right, I
If it
can't wait to do that. Let's get on to the meat of the topic and talk some football. I think it's fair to say that so far this offseason, we've been looking at the Ducks in 2024 through rose-colored glasses, so to speak. It's not just us either. I mean, most of the college football world expects Dan Lanning and the Ducks to be one of the best teams in the nation this year. For one episode, though, I want us to take off those rose-colored glasses and see if we can't try and identify some of the potential areas of concern. Let's just get negative for an episode. Does that sound good?
and yeah, and it was really hard to do,
It was.
to
It
be
was not
honest.
easy.
It's very hard to like, and at the end of the day, we might not even walk away feeling negative. I mean,
No. Yeah.
we're gonna try to talk ourselves into it, okay?
Yeah.
And let's see how it all shapes out.
Yeah. So, in preparation for this, you and I both identified some potential causes for concern for Oregon in 2024. These aren't necessarily things that we expect to happen, but if the
Mhm.
Ducks end up not having that college football playoff worthy season, or if they have some bumps in the road, it may be because one or two of these things might have happened and been an issue. Why don't you start us off with your first area of concern?
All right, well, let's talk about distance for
Mm,
a second here, right?
Distance.
So, how many miles was that you calculated?
Okay, yeah, I did some math on this, so I actually have a lot of numbers for this. I know this is your thing, but once you told me that travel was one of your things, I was like, "All right, I'm gonna dive into this because this is
Yeah, give
actually
us
really
some
interesting."
data.
So let me set you up with this. 5 away games this year.
Yep.
The Oregon Ducks will travel 7,587 miles in total. That's an average of 1,500 miles per trip, pretty much.
Yeah.
However, one of those 5 away games is up to Corvallis, which is just 47 miles away. So it kinda skews the numbers a little bit throwing that in there. So take that away, and Oregon travels 7,540 miles in their 4 trips with an average of 1,800 miles per trip. Longest trip is 2,359 miles to the Big House in Michigan.
Wow.
That's
And
a lot of
so
travel.
I'm just gonna go out and say that's an average of like 3.5, 4 hours a trip at least, right? So um when it comes to distance and traveling, we got to talk about fatigue.
Mhm.
And, playing, my first year playing at the professional level, we traveled back west to play the San Diego Chargers, which, if you guys have been listening to us this year, you would have known the story of me almost dying on a plane.
Something happened on that plane ride.
Yeah, I had some shrimp and I almost died. But I'm here today to tell the story. But anyways, not going to retell that story, but just basically hitting on the fact that distance is not just fatigue, but it's a process and it takes time. And, as far as University of Oregon, how are we going to get, our equipment there? What days are we going to travel? Are we going to leave a day early? Are we going to leave 2 days early for certain games? Where are we going to practice when we get there? Um, Food and nutrition. And let's remind everybody here, we're dealing with children at the end of the day. I mean, you might have some 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, maybe some 17-year-olds that you got to travel with and make sure they're on their best behavior and not out and about exploring and doing whatever, right? So there's just a lot of variables when it comes to traveling. I mean, as you know, what is it like to travel with a baby as compared to traveling solo with your spouse?
As
It's a
someone who
lot.
just traveled to Hawaii and back with a 1.5-year-old, yeah, it's, I'm
Yeah,
having
you're
nightmares remembering it.
you're taking baby bags, you're taking baby bottles, you
Oh,
probably got the formula or the
so much
pump and
stuff.
snacks and toys and strollers and the crib that packs up and goes, and it's like all easy, but it's hard to travel with.
Yep.
So, along with all your carry-ons and your soap and your toothbrush and your shoes, because you want to make sure you bought the nice Oregon J's, and you want to be able to sport them on the beach, which you shouldn't be wearing your Jordans on the beach because they're gonna get sand all up in them. But so there's just a lot that has to go right for things to be seamless, because that's what you need, you know, as far as a team that's traveling. You don't want any things to pop up or hiccups that can be a distraction for the team, because you want the team to be focused and you want them to feel like everything's seamless, like they're at home. And so that's one of the things that's gonna be shaky. And obviously they have people on staff to get this right, but as far as fatigue, that goes for the players, coaches, and all of the staff.
Well, that's somewhere where you can really weigh in from your experience in the league too. I mean, how much more tired were you before a game after a 3-4 hour plane ride than if a game was at home or if the game was an hour away?
Yeah, you're talking about you being up in an airplane where you are basically exposed to hydrate dehydration, right? The being up that high for so long, your body, you have to hydrate continuously. And when you're hydrating, yeah, that might sound good. Oh, just hydrate, but really, you're taking your body through this whole digestive state that is actually draining energy. And so, if we're trying to tell our players to relax and recover and all of that, you have to hydrate. You're in an airplane. You're putting your body through the ringer. Let's not forget, we put our bodies through the ringer through our training, through football practice, through studying hours. Oh, let's talk about that. You got school now. So you're traveling way more and further. So now you got to think about your school and how you're getting on, staying on top of all of that, because you're losing hours of focus on school because you're going to be spending more hours traveling. Uh, so I mean, there's just so much that I think you have to prepare for, because it does take a toll on your body. I mean, talk about after a game and you are like, especially the games that are hot, right? You're dehydrated. You get on a plane, you're going to be even more dehydrated. You're probably cramping up on the plane. You got nicks and bruises. You got to figure out how to, get some ice, and that's more equipment, or there's just ice bags. I'm pretty sure they got some really cool equipment, but you got to pack it. And who's going to be able to use it, right? You got a bunch of players that might need it, and some guys are going to be left out. And man, I'm glad I don't have to travel for football games.
Well, let's also just be clear. I mean, like our note before all of this started, like I don't think that Oregon is gonna now lose 2 to 3 games this year because they have to travel more. This team knows
Oh
how to
no,
travel. They've
yeah.
traveled to games. They went to Texas Tech last year. They've been to several places. I mean, they've been on plane rides. They know how to travel. What we're saying is just that this is an unexpected or, it's hard to quantify the variable, what the impact this
Mhm.
will have. So if Oregon ends up losing one of those games, if maybe this makes it, I mean, I think Oregon would be favored against Michigan right now. They got to travel
Mhm.
over to or to Ann Arbor for this. Maybe that just evens the playing field a little bit more, just because they're that much less prepared, I guess you could say. But if we're trusting any team in the nation to have the
Resources.
capabilities and the
Yeah.
resources to have these kids ready, I kind of
I
trust
think we'll
Oregon to do it. But it's just
Yeah,
one of
it's a
those.
lot different. It's a lot different. The pro level, man, they kind of treat us, like I don't want to say any bad like words as far as like, but they treat us like hard workers. Okay,
Uh-huh. It's your job. It's your
it's your
job.
job. Get on the plane, and here's a bucket of ice.
Hmm.
Heal up.
Yeah.
And at the college level, they actually have a lot of resources to make sure these guys are healthy and rested up and ready to go. So I'm not concerned about it, but there's a lot of variables that have to go right to where um, it's not a distraction. So
Can I just give you a few more numbers before we go to the next part?
yeah, let's do it.
Just for fun, how this compared to Oregon's Pac-12 schedule in 2023. They had five away games last year. They traveled 4,214 miles with an average of 842 miles per trip. So that's nearly half of what they will be doing in 2024.
Wow.
Just for
Yeah.
comparison.
Well, so for the rookies, they're not gonna know any better. But the
Hmm.
guys and the vets, they're gonna have to figure out a way um, to to deal with the newness.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's hard to adapt, right? When you're
Hmm.
used to something and you're used to things being a certain way for so long, it's hard to break.
Hmm.
It's hard to be okay with it. So my advice to the Oregon Ducks for next year is to be very adaptable, just
Hmm.
like you are on the field. You have to be that way off the field, and even more so on these away games and the travel.
Absolutely. All right. My first cause for concern: quarterback play. I know we both feel confident in Dylan Gabriel, but he's being expected to take over for Bo Nix, who was spectacular last year. Those are some very big shoes to fill. I'm not saying that Dylan Gabriel can't do it. I think he can do it. I think a lot of people think he can do it, but Bo Nix was a Heisman finalist last year. It feels like a lot of people are just penciling in Dylan Gabriel to pick up where he left off. Again, I Bleav he can. I think he's talented enough. I think this offensive staff is smart enough and good enough at coaching that they will have him in the right spots. I'm also aware of the possibility that there is a little bit of a drop off. New QB in a new system, it's not always a seamless transition. If there's an area of concern, I think that's something that you should have to be aware of going into the season, because it feels like a lot of people just take for granted how special Bo Nix was last year, and they expect this new guy to pick up right where he left off. It probably can happen. If I'm a betting man, it probably will happen. I think Dylan Gabriel will be just as good, but is there a chance that he's not? Absolutely.
Yeah, we won't know until we know. But I do know one thing. He delivered at Oklahoma.
He did.
And I think that's something to be said about his preparation and his readiness for going to the Big Ten and competing at a high level. The way I think one thing that we can expect in the sense of Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel, they're great. They're both good decision makers.
Mhm.
When it comes to the RPO, you have to be a good decision maker. If you're a scout, if you are a recruiter, you're looking at the RPO. Yeah. Can he run? Can he pass? Sure, that's great. But is he making the right decisions? And
Mhm.
the RPO, you have to make split second decisions. Almost the decision before it's even like it's almost kind of sometimes it's a lot of the times it's pre-snap, and um so the football IQ that I see right now just from Dylan Gabriel's standpoint going into this year gives him an edge and something that we all as football fans and Oregon fans can expect him to deliver, which is decision making um, is going to be there. He can get the ball out quick on all throws. Uh, but yeah, again, we won't know until we know.
It's true. And The one thing that gives me a lot of confidence is similar to Bo Nix. It seems that Dylan Gabriel is a preparer. He is a hard worker. He's a film room type guy where, he's not Cam Newton, where he just kind of shows up with the physical gifts and is ready to dominate. Dylan Gabriel's like 5'11",
Yeah,
maybe 200 pounds on a good day. So he's kind of had to work a little bit extra hard his entire life to get where he is. So that he's not going to be underprepared for any of this, but it's just an area that I'm looking at going forward. Like you said, we won't know until we know. I expect us to know pretty quickly that he can be the guy. What's nice is that Oregon's schedule kind of allows for some. They don't have to be elite right away to win these
right.
games. They've got an
Yeah,
easy schedule first half of the year, so there can be some wiggle room for some bumps and bruises, and let him get the feel of the offense before the big games.
yeah.
All right,
Agreed,
give me
agreed.
your next cause for concern.
Cause for concern could be the offensive line.
Yeah,
Um, I'll start with the fact that we lost our center,
the best center in the
the
nation.
best center in the nation, in JPJ, and um, but I will say, I think we have a filler.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
I
so.
think we're I think we're good at center with Poncho.
Uh-huh.
And the fact that we can call him Poncho, that's
Just gonna s
great
just gonna say,
because
you wanna try the name?
his real name is his whole name is hard to pronounce, and
We'll
I'm
pause
glad
this
he.
segment to get to our favorite segment. Jay Stu tries to pronounce someone's name on the podcast without preparation. That's at least
Oh
my
man,
favorite segment of the show.
oh man, but we have Poncho. You want me to really try to pronounce the
Go
name?
for it. It'd be fun.
All right, well, let me go and look at his actual name. Okay, Ibani Pancho Lalu.
That's actually pretty close. The
Yeah,
way I've got it is Iapani, not
yeah.
Ipani, but Iapani Lalulu. There you
Oh,
go.
yeah,
That's better than
Ibani.
Mateo.
Okay, yeah, that is better. But Pancho, man, he's a wide body, and he's actually probably like physically and athletically, like just he might be more athletic than JPJ, right? Um, so as far as that goes, I mean, he played guard last year, and being able to fill this role is pretty. I feel pretty confident about that. But what I really feel good about are the two tackles and Josh Cornerly
Connerly.
and Connerly
Mhm.
and Cornelius.
Yep.
These two guys seem to have the stature and the ability to be pros one day. Maybe next year. Maybe both of them are gone and we have to go find tackles immediately. But I look at, why we were so good last year is because we were really good on the perimeter.
Mhm.
We were able to attack the perimeter because, the scheme that we ran as an offense, you have vertical routes that basically put the DBs in a bind. And when you have the DBs in a bind and they don't want to tackle anyways, the run game is successful on the perimeter edge. So our run game last year, 5.8 yards per carry. I think we finished second in the nation in rushing. We were top passers. We were top pass blocking rating in the nation last year. So you have an offense that can do both. That's pretty good. And obviously, last year I think having Bo Nix being who he was as a quarterback, getting the ball out quick, uh, really kind of gives the offensive line the edge in pass blocking because you don't have to block for that long if you're getting the ball out quick. Um, so I think again with Dylan Gabriel's approach, the RPO, and his ability to dissect things quick, hopefully, is going to be able to even help the offensive line more. Uh, so yeah, man, I think that could be a cause for concern as far as the center position, but getting Bedford from the Hoosiers
Mhm.
says a lot about our depth because we only got one guy out of the portal, and so that screams to me that obviously they feel pretty comfortable with our depth. And so you can question depth, but is the coaching staff questioning the depth? If they're not, then I won't question it either.
Yeah, that's the exact point I wanted to make. It seems like when we wrote this down as one of the causes for concern, part of me was like, "What the hell are you doing?" This was a Joe Moore Award finalist last year for the best offensive line in the nation, and you're putting them as a cause for concern, but it's
No, I just wanted to talk about how good we're going to be
I
next
know,
year.
right? That's what we're doing is we're bringing up these cause for concerns. Was like, nah, that's not really that big of an issue.
Yeah,
We'll be good. But it's, I mean, it is a cause for concern because losing that center position, losing Jackson Powers Johnson, is such a big deal. I mean,
yeah.
that's I don't want to take anything away from him. He was obviously the best center in the nation last year. So
Mhm,
just kind of assuming that Poncho is going to come in and just like Dylan Gabriel with Bo Nix, just take up where JPJ left off. That's a big ask. Again,
mm,
like Dylan Gabriel, I completely believe that he can do it. I mean, we've seen the trust from this coaching staff, and we've heard everything they've had to say both last year and this offseason that he's going to be that guy. And the thing that gives me the most confidence is look what they did, and rather what they didn't do in the transfer portal this year.
mm.
Oregon did not go out and get a backup center. I mean, we look at the depth chart. You could put Marcus Harper from left guard to center if you need to, but it's not like they've got a guy ready waiting in the wing to take over at center or to compete with Poncho for that starting center spot. So that's kind of what gives me the most confidence. And again, yeah, with this offensive line, you got to trust them, man. I mean, they've given us no reason not to trust what they can do. This coaching staff has them in elite position. I'm yeah, it's a cause for concern just because it's like, all right, this may be an issue, but I really, of all the things that we bring up today, I think this is the one that I'm least concerned about.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, my next one. This one is a bit more, you know, wide open. I'm going to say injuries. And that's something that should be a cause for concern every year because you just can't plan for them. You can only try and prevent them. Oregon has seen injuries derail their last two seasons. Bo Nix got hurt in 2022, leading to the loss versus Washington. There were cornerback injuries last year against Washington in the first game of the year that really hurt them in the second half of that game. Then there was injuries again against Washington in the Pac-12 title game to Troy Franklin, Jordan Burch, Kyrie Jackson, Jaleel Florence. I think the game. I don't want to say that Oregon would have won that game if they didn't get injured. I just think the game might have been a little bit different. That's something that we'll never know, but we can always kind of wonder if you're Oregon fans. So the best way to protect against these injuries hurting you is by building depth, and the Ducks have done that as well as anyone in the nation this year, going out and
Mhm.
just stacking every position. I mean, you look how deep these cornerbacks in this safety room is. You look how deep the defensive line is, the receivers, the running backs. It feels like Dan Lanning knows they're like, all right, we got hurt last year because we had some of our top guys get injured. We didn't have the right talent to replace them on the field and come in. I don't think that's as much of an issue this year, but injuries, I mean, this you can say this copy and paste every single season. It's a cause for concern because it has a chance to derail your season.
Oh yeah, yeah. Depth is a major piece to winning championships.
Yeah.
No question.
Speaking of depth, your next cause for concern.
Oh well, the linebacker crew here. You know, I think Justin Jacobs is as a starter,
Absolutely.
and rightfully so. And I think Jeffrey Bossa. Is that how you say his name?
Yep.
Bossa.
Yep. That's it.
Hey, hey Jeffrey Bossa. Jeffrey. Anyway, I don't know. Every time I actually see the name Jeffrey, I'm like Jeffrey. Anyways, but no, but uh, I think these guys, if they stay healthy, obviously we're going to be um, in good hands. But I also I've also read the Ducks Wire and learned a little bit about Jerry Mixon,
Mhm.
right? Um, and so if he's looking really good and he played really well in the spring, he'll get some playing time this year and he'll be able to fill in those gaps like you were saying earlier about depth. The part that you need is to have guys to be able to come in and not skip a beat. And if he can be a guy like that at the Mac position at the linebacker spot, um, then the coast is clear. Um, but what is your thoughts here on Devin Jackson?
See, he's the guy. I mean, Devin Jackson and Jerry Mixon are we've had very high hopes for them. Obviously, Jerry Mixon was a freshman last year, so we didn't have like the highest hopes for him, but the hype is building for him the same way it's been building for Devin Jackson over the last couple of years. We're still waiting to see it. Obviously, he hasn't gotten a ton of playing time. That's because they've had the top end talent at the linebacker position. But it feels like this is a year where he could really break out. Like the center position, I was kind of surprised that they didn't go out and get another linebacker in the transfer portal. I thought that was an area where they could build some of that depth, like we're talking about. But it shows the level of trust that Dan Lanning and this team have, this coaching staff have, in guys like Devin Jackson, Jerry Mixon, Bryce Petcher. Outside of the top two, Jeffrey Bossa and Justin Jacobs, there's not a ton of experience, but by
Mhm.
their actions, they're showing that they trust their young guys in the room. So I feel like we have to trust them as well.
What do you think about Braden Platt?
I mean, they're good. I mean, there's I think three true freshman linebackers on this team: Braden Platt, Kamar Mathuti, and Dylan Williams. Uh, I'm excited to see them. They're
Yeah.
incredibly highly rated recruits, so you have to
You
feel
think they'll
confident.
you think they'll get any burn this year?
I mean, definitely early in the season when a lot of the young guys get playing time. Once we get past the midway point and those games start really, really mattering and you're playing against the best teams, I don't know that you'll see them as much, but man, we saw with the edge group last year, the true freshmen played throughout the year. You saw guys like Mateo and Blake Purchase and Tatum Tuioti get a lot of time late in the season. So Dan Lanning
Yeah.
has always said, if you're good enough, you're old enough to play. So I think
Yeah.
we could see that with some of these linebackers. It just feels like this coaching staff really trusts that group by their decision not to bring in any linebackers from the transfer portal. So
Yeah, if I'm a linebacker in this position, I'm feeling all the confidence in the world with
you
that answer,
should.
right?
Yeah.
Because, if you're a guy that there's transfer portal guys coming in, there that really kind of says a lot about the group and what the
Hmm.
coaching staff thinks about you. Maybe you're not performing the way they thought that you were going to perform, or maybe you've hit your ceiling. Um, and or maybe the position group is getting older and it's time to make those moves. But for this group, like particularly, it's an opportunity for these guys to go out there and compete,
Hmm.
especially the younger guys. You compete for that opportunity to go on the field and make your case that, hey, I'm dependable and I'm trustworthy. Whenever the time comes, put me in the game so I can make some noise. So
Well, and at the start of the transfer portal window every year, I mean, we do an article on Duckswire that's like, all right, here are some names to look at, some names that have entered the portal, some guys that Oregon might look at. We had a lot of linebackers on that list this past year because I was like, all right, they could use some depth. That was before we knew that Bossa and Jacobs were coming back, so it was definitely an area of concern, not
yeah,
concern, but need. And but even once they came back, it was like, all right, well, they still might add some guys. They never did. And so that, like I said, tells you all you need to know about what this coaching staff thinks of that position.
yeah. Do you think Jeffrey Bossa could have left and gotten picked up at a good you know
Yeah, I feel like he could
spot?
have. I mean, Jamal Hill got drafted what in the sixth round, I think. I think Jeffrey Bossa, all due respect to Jamal Hill, I think Bossa's better than him.
Okay.
I think that Bossa could have gone and probably been a fourth or fifth rounder, probably, but he also knew that if he returned for one more year, he could potentially be a second or third rounder next year. So,
Right. That's
um,
kind of how I feel about the tackles, right?
yeah,
Like
exactly.
they want to, get 1 year under their belt and get some national attention
Hmm.
and get drafted high.
Because
'Cause I
both
mean,
of
there was
those
a
guys,
there's a lot of offensive linemen that were taken this year, so
yeah,
they're probably thinking to themselves, there's a lot of offensive linemen in this draft. Let me sit back for a little bit and protect myself. Hopefully, though, they play with the mindset to actually finish blocks and they're not protecting themselves because
yeah.
that can hurt them in the long run as far
Hmm.
as actually getting injured. If you're not playing full speed, you get injured, and also too, if you're not playing full speed, you're missing blocks and you're looking bad on tape.
Yep, absolutely. All right, my last cause for concern, our last cause for concern, Dan Lanning in the big game. Until we see it, I will be a little bit hesitant when it comes to Dan Lanning in big games. I have, again, complete confidence in him as a coach, as a developer, as a recruiter. We just need to see him win some of these big games. He has some very solid wins in his career at Oregon. He beat a ranked BYU team, ranked UCLA team, Utah in 2022. He won at Texas Tech, won in Utah 2023. He's also got some really tough losses, though. You got the 2022 Georgia, Washington, Oregon State games, all those losses in pretty big games. 2023, a pair of losses against Washington in massive games. It's just something that until we see it, it will always be a cause for concern going into these games. That doesn't mean I'm picking against them because he can't win the big game. It just means that I want to see a little bit more proof going forward.
Yeah, I already have enough proof.
Okay.
I just feel like he's just now. This is his third year.
Yep.
I think 3 years is the magical number for any coaching staff to come in and take full reign. You've gone through a cycle of figuring it out, right? Hey, I'm Dan Lanning and I'm here and I'm your coach. Then you have and you're introducing yourself to players that you didn't get here, right? And there are probably some guys that you don't want around. And so the next year you're working through, okay, let's get rid of some guys and let's kind of create, this culture that I really want, right? And so now we're looking at this year and we're actually going to go recruit guys to come to the culture that you're already started to create. And so now you're getting the mold that you want. So I feel like, his time in Alabama playing, under Nick Saban and being on that national stage, that's enough experience for anyone. That
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? So the pressure, the execution, I think we're going to be able to have that throughout the whole entire year. But yeah, until we see it happen, the big game, we won't know until we see it happen. But I do have, um, my trust in Dan Lanning and his ability to make that happen, and we'll see it this year on a great stage with the culture that he's actually created within the University of Oregon.
Yeah, it feels like we just need a bigger sample size as well, and I think we're really gonna get that in 2024. There are a lot of big games to come this season. I mean, you got the Ohio
Mhm.
State game, you got Michigan, you got Washington, you got Wisconsin, potential Big Ten title game, you got potential college football playoff games, 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 of them. I mean, we're gonna learn pretty quickly whether or not Dan Lanning can win
So
these big
basically,
games.
so basically, we just got to be above 500.
Yeah, yeah, we can do that, and so none of this is saying that I or you lack belief that Lanning can win
Yeah.
these games. I mean, you disagree with me a little bit, which I love, but I just personally wanna see it before I can have that hesitation completely leave. Because until then, I mean, going into some of this Ohio State game, part of me is gonna I'm sure we're gonna talk then, part of me is gonna be like, "Alright, let's see it. Prove it
Mm,
to me that you can go out and win this big time game on a huge national stage."
absolutely. And you got to prove it to yourself. I always speak from a player's perspective. I always look at, oh, can they win the game, or is that a challenge? Yes, they can win the
Yeah,
game. Yeah, like I take it personal almost,
yeah.
but absolutely, keeping it all, one playing, level playing field here. You got to see it happen before it happens. Yeah, so you got to believe first.
Let's finish with this. Which former Pac-12 team has the most to prove in the Big Ten for you this year? Yeah, go ahead with that. Which former Pac-12 team has the most to prove this year?
Oregon.
Really? Okay. Tell me why.
Because we have the upper hand going in as far as the other Pac-12 teams. I think UW. I think everyone's basically saying, "Hey, look, you're not going to be good next year." So
Yeah. Nice
sit there.
2023. We'll see you again in a few years.
And USC, like, hey, man, we lost our best player, and our
Yeah.
defense was terrible last year, and Uh, I mean, you can argue maybe USC has something to prove on their defensive side because they were so terrible last year. They got to figure out a way to, get those guys on that side of the ball. to play more aggressive and play more sound football. But I think it's definitely Oregon. I look at the Oregon University of Washington game and how University of Washington just ran the ball all over us. One of the things I want to see proven is our ability to stop the run at all cost, because that's what it's going to take to win games in the Big Ten, because those guys like to run the ball, especially when that weather hits different, right?
Mhm.
So might get some snow games.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I personally probably would have said USC just because, USC views themselves as this national powerhouse, whether or not anyone else views them as that. But now they're on that national stage. They're not playing a Pac-12 schedule anymore. So it's like, all right, let's see you be this elite team. You've got Lincoln Riley there. He claims to be one of the best coaches in the nation. Let's see it. But I love your answer about Oregon, because Oregon's the same way. Oregon views themselves as a national championship contender year in, year out. You've got the path for it this year. You've got an easier playoff to make. Let's see you do it. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best.
Absolutely. All right, we'll be back on next week, just like normal. Again, one more time, please, please go find us on your podcasting app. Subscribe, like, rate, review, all that stuff. Tell your mom, tell your neighbor. Help us grow our audience a bit this offseason so we can really get rolling once the 2024 season hits. Jace, do you got anything to add?
Tell your mama, tell your pa that I'm going back to Arkansas. You ever heard that song?
I don't think so. No,
Yeah, I think that's a song. It got if it's not a song, I'm gonna record it.
you've
But
got
I
one
think it's
coming.
definitely a song though.
So I'll say this now: if you leave a review on the podcast, Jay Stu will not only read it, he will sing it on
I
the
will
podcast.
sing it. I will sing the review in ways that you've never heard before.
I don't know that anyone wants this now.
I can do a little jazz. Welcome to the Bleav in Oregon show.
Why am I doing the intro to the podcast every time? Now, all right, you're showing me what you can do. You're going to be the new host of the podcast, and I'm just going to sit back.
Hey man, we can switch it up here and there.
I like it. All right, you can check out more of my work at duckswire.usatoday.com. Follow me at Zachary C. Neel on Twitter. Follow Jay Stu on Twitter at JonathanStuR1. Make sure to check out the Bleav in Panthers podcast. For myself, Zach Neel, for my co-host Jonathan Stewart, we will talk to you guys next week. Until then, take it easy.